Isaac, it's me. I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything. I wish I could just talk to someone. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening. It's strange. Such a little thing.
Welcome everyone to the first part of the first edition of a new series of mine which I've titled Let's Talk, where my first episode will focus solely on the discussion of the very first entry into the Dead Space franchise. Now before we delve into the elements of the game itself, I'd like to just quickly talk about how Dead Space came to be. Dead Space was first announced by Electronic Arts in September of 2007. The game was developed by EA Redwood Shores, situated within California, which would later be rebranded as Visceral Games. A rumor that began in 2006 suggested that the studio was working on a sequel to the very popular game System Shock. This was later to be confirmed by designers for the Dead Space game, Ben Wannett and Wright Bagwell, who stated that they originally intended to create System Shock 3 before the release of Resident Evil 4 inspired them to go back to the drawing board and take inspiration and develop it into something similar. The game's producer, Glenn Schofield, said that the team aimed to create something much darker and creepier than their previous titles, such as The Godfather and The Simpsons game. We were all such huge fans of the horror and sci-fi genres. We wanted to create the most terrifying game that we could, and keep the player on the edge of their seat the entire time. The design team reportedly spent time analysing a wide variety of horror films in order to find inspiration for the in-game scares. To begin my research into the game itself, I decided to replay the game in its entirety. I've completed the game 100% on the Xbox 360, but I've never played it through entirely on the PlayStation 3, so I decided to play it properly, for the first time on my PlayStation 3, for the purpose of this video and just to capture my own footage along the way. So, I drew the curtains, put on my headset, and I powered up the game. My first impressions of the opening sequence with Nicole then transitioning into the journey towards the USG Ishimura with Kendra Daniels, Zach Hammond, Chen Johnson, and of course, our hero, Isaac Clarke, is that the PlayStation 3 had a graphical edge over its Xbox 360 counterpart, in my own opinion. The picture seems much more crisp and a lot detailed. The view of the Ishimura as it floats into vision from beyond the debris is absolutely stunning. I'm playing on a much larger television since my previous playthrough, so everything on the screen just pops out a lot more to me. The game was released in 2008, which is 10 years this year, and it still holds up beautifully. The controls are fluid and the interface is dynamic. Before this game, it was extremely common to go without the use of a HUD format. As you were playing through the game and you have to check your health, all you have to do is check Isaac's spine and it's right there. Do you need to check the ammo counter for your tool? Check the counter that is situated on the top of the tool as you aim, and to check stasis, it is situated next to Isaac's health bar. This game was made to immerse yourself entirely within the world, and Visceral Games had done a beautiful job in doing so. The amount of work in detail that went into creating the world of Dead Space is simply amazing, along with the lighting effects that are used to emphasize the gruesome events that have taken place and to make you feel isolated works so well. As you take control of Isaac for the first time and begin to help repair the Ishimura, you realize that this is not just a very simple repair mission. The diagnostics show that the ship's centrifuge is offline, and that is when the dread comes to find you. The enemy attacks your fellow engineers as you are isolated behind a glass partition, and all the information that you are fed is to simply run. You have no weapons, no attacks, nothing. You must simply survive the threat that is rushing towards your being as you attempt to make your escape, and once you reach the elevator, just as you feel a sense of relief and safety, an enemy bursts its way through the elevator doors, only to have its head and arms sliced off by the doors to your utmost reprieve. As you're making your way as to what is hopefully an area of safety, you make a creeping realization. You are not leaving this ship with ease. This opening is one of my favourite in gaming history. Not often have I been thrown into a game without any help, weapons, or any hope of survival at the very beginning, and every time I boot up the start of this game, it just gets me every time. It is such a great flip of the norm of gaming at that time, and it still is to this day. Once you leave the elevator, you hear the banging of someone in monumental danger coming from the other side of a locked door. You search the area, and upon seeing a message on the wall written in blood to cut off their limbs, you find your first tool that can be used as a weapon upon the body of who must have written the message as a helpful warning for whoever may see it to help them in their survival. It may not have helped the previous holder, but this will unequivocally benefit you. You break the lock and tangle with your very first enemy known as a necromorph. The term necromorph is a neodylism compromised with the root words necro from the Greek word nekros, meaning dead, and morph, from the Greek word morph, meaning form or shape. Thus, necromorph can be translated into the synonymical, morphologically parsed term dead form, an apt name for the creatures given their nature. This particular variety is a slasher necromorph, which can be taken down with relative ease depending on your understanding of the controls. With this introduction to the enemy, you prepare yourself for what shall come. Another great thing which I personally enjoyed from the creators was that you never use a quote-unquote a gun in this game. Your entire arsenal is in fact mining tools that are used for engineering within the Dead Space universe, for planet cracking and engineering, with the exception of the pulse rifle. They always bring the roots of Isaac's character as an everyday person and not a stereotypical action hero. They ground him in a sort of reality and a familiarity with us, the players. You make your way past your first enemy and meet Kendra and Hammond after the initial split up, but alas, they are stuck across the platform from you with no transport. They need to make their way to the bridge of the Ishimura to access the personnel files. Hammond asks Isaac to head to the maintenance bay to help fix the tram line so Hammond and Kendra can help Isaac find Nicole. You make your way towards the broken transport system along the lines of the tramline system itself. Here, you find the stasis module retrieved from a former crew member which you fused to your suit. This module helps Isaac slow down objects and enemies for a certain amount of time, and as you use the stasis module on the malfunctioning door ahead of you to proceed forward. As you find yourself in the maintenance bay, you activate the arm attachments to help move the tram. The stasis module that you recently received helps you out in this particular section and became a very handy and full element to the gameplay. This element can be particularly beneficial for people who find the game to be a bit overwhelming, and this can give players a quick escape and help take down necromorphs quicker, can help them think a bit better on how to approach things in the future. A new enemy type gets introduced to you as you leave the bay after successfully transporting the tram car. This enemy is called a leaper, with the ability to leap long distances towards their prey, sporting razor sharp fangs, along with a long scythe-tipped tail made from the victim's intestines and legs. They are extremely deadly foes. It teases its arrival by residing within the vent above you, but will meet you very soon. Walking back through the malfunctioning door, making your way back towards Kendra and Hammond, you get ambushed by a slasher and a leaper. The stasis module is an excellent use against the leaper once it lands, as they are extremely tricky to aim at. It slows them down as you can slice off their arms to subdue its erratic and unpredictable behavior. Once these enemies have been defeated and you can make your way back to the tram station, you find out you need to reach the bay to retrieve a data board, and once you reach your destination, you realize that this is one of the best rooms in the game. It sets up the atmosphere of the rest of the game within this room. It is a dark room, is blinking, malfunctioning lights, low-hanging trams that warp the lighting that make you believe that there is always something else in the bay with you. It does a great job in getting you prepared for multi-layered rooms with many enemies, which crop up further throughout the game, and sets the tone for future set pieces. The tram system jumps back online, and Kendra and Hammond make their way back to the bridge, whilst you set your way to the USG Kellyan to prep it for evac, and the hope that Nicole is alive and well. Once you are on your way back, you take notice of how everything has become much darker and sinister upon the Ishimura. You cut through much more necromorphs than before. Just as you reach the Kellyan and get it back online, a leaper crawls his way across the front of the ship, sending a chill down your spine. The Kellyan's reboot triggers the necromorphs to attack the ship, which sends the Kellyan up in flames, explodes, and plummets to the floor of the hangar below as you jump off to try and save yourself. As the USG Kellyan seems to be the only form of escape, Hammond tries to get Kendra to access the command computer, but there is an executive lockdown on all primary systems, and without the captain's authorization, there is no access. So, Isaac gets sent to retrieve the access codes from Captain Benjamin Matthias, but the captain is situated within the medlab, deceased. A sense of dread and fear hits you once you step off the tram and onto the medical deck. A woman caring over a dead body, whom she believes is well and truly alive, lays before you as you try to take your first steps onto the med deck. She is happy with your presence, believing that now they are safe and free. She drops the kinesis module at your feet, which you attach to your person, and becomes a very efficient tool for gameplay and puzzles from here on out. It helps you with moving switches, bringing out of reach items towards you, and also throwing objects towards enemies to slow them down. Your first schematic also makes an appearance, which you can use at the store to purchase said items. Hammond contacts you once more to inform you on where to grab the thermite in medical storage and a shock pad from ZOG therapy to help blow a hole in a barricade that is blocking the way towards the emergency wing. An extremely well lit room greets you on your mission to find the captain's codes, which is such a stark contrast from what you've experienced up to this point. You find Dr. Terence Kine's office, and within it a vidlog which contains a very interesting conversation between Kine and Captain Matthias, where the captain is very eager to bring a marker that was recently discovered onto the Ishimura and back to EarthGov, but Kine is worried about its presence on board the ship, as the people below on Aegis 7 have been dying ever since it has been discovered. This would be an early view into the effects that the marker would have on unitologists and also Captain Matthias, who is also a devout member of the church but has not been known amongst the crew, so he will come across as neutral and not having any idea of what has been truly lurking beneath the crust of Aegis 7. Slowly over time, the captain was losing his mind day after day and at a much more accelerated pace once the marker had been discovered, which is a very stark contrast with Kyne, whom is also a member of the Church of Unitology but has a higher intelligence to see what the presence of the marker truly brings, and that it brings destruction. You are introduced to a brand new enemy, which is a horrifically reanimated infant that has 3 barbed tentacles that fire sharp quills at its enemies, which specializes in ranged attacks. They have been extensively mutated, sporting a number of adaptations to facilitate ranged and low gravity combat, and is simply known as a lurker. You later witness to a still alive Ishimura laborer being on the receiving end of an attack from a lurker, and you prepare yourself for the new enemy ahead. Once the lurker and numerous others have been taken care of, you find the thermite and make your way to find the shock pad to help you make your way to the med lab, which brings you to one of the most memorable moments in the game and entire franchise. Down a dimly lit corridor, you hear a faint thumping. You make a right turn down the corridor to witness a man slowly banging his head against the steel walls of the ship, over and over, with blood pouring down. You approach him, and as you get close, he takes his final thump and ends it all as he slides down the wall and falls before you. You see that this body has been ravaged beyond recognition, which makes you think, was he alive or was he already dead? A corridor has been smashed wide open by a form of debris which has turned it into a zero-G area where Isaac's magnetic boots helps keep him grounded whilst traversing empty space, but this is also the first area where you can propel yourself from point to point, grabbing the shot pad whilst trying to avoid a numerous amount of leapers. The thermite and shock pad create a tremendous explosion of white light to create a free path for you to make your way to the med lab. Some very frightening and grey medical areas crop up that still get to me this day. Another iconic scene plays out in front of you of a doctor performing surgery on a patient, which has clearly succumbed to the effects of the marker and slits her very own throat as you approach, which sets up what you're about to discover in the med lab, along with a chilling message recorded by Dr. Kyne. Once you arrive in the med lab and approach the captain's corpse, a brand new enemy known as the Infector bursts his way through the vents above the captain and reanimates him into another new enemy. He becomes what is called an enhanced slasher, a higher form of the regular slasher, but has undergone advanced decomposition and have become far more resilient to damage than their non-enhanced counterparts, and are likewise much stronger and ferocious in combat and increases the probability of failure and survival. This is basically like a mini boss area, but it's also an area where more seasoned players can take out the slasher with relative ease with the advanced knowledge of the tools, along with curb stomping the limbs off of each and every individual corpse that are littering the ground of the med lab before the fight, as an infector is also present, which can reanimate said corpses to make the fight with the captain much harder and much tougher. Once you manage to take down Captain Matthias, you recover his rig with the codes and contact Hammond, who tells you to make your way back to the tram, signalling the end of the chapter. The chapter isn't over just yet, as Hammond contacts you once again to inform you that a necromorph managed to find his way into the captain's nest, but Hammond managed to contain it in a damaged escape pod. He explains further that the alien life which infected the crew came from planetside once it was cracked open. It spread to the Connolly, which then made its way aboard the ship. Hammond signs off by ordering you to fix the offline engine and head to the engineering deck. Hammond discovers that the ship's gravity centrifuge is offline, which spells disaster along with no fuel in the ship's engines. A hub-like area is your next destination, which is very much like the rest of the ship, dripping with atmosphere and immersion from head to toe. This has been nailed down to a T, and you never feel like you are ever out of the game. The long dark corridor leading up to the hub area, along with the bright lamp lights that unsettle you slightly as you walk in, along with the branching hallways and lone corpse sitting next to the control panel. Along several destroyed, gore and blood-soaked hallways, you are brought to a platform to help you complete your task. You hear an intriguing roar, which is a sign of things to come. Shortly after this, you are thrown into a tense and terrifying moment, which I feel is one of the most intense parts of the game, especially in the beginning of this game. You are locked down inside a decontamination room where your very presence sets off the containment alarm, which activates lockdown and can only be lifted once all the contaminants have been removed. This is another situation that the developers use well, where they throw you, the player, into yet another perilous and helpless moment. They build up your confidence and abilities over the last couple of hours, only to strip you back down by giving the necromorphs the upper hand by imprisoning you inside this room, with all of them on the outside, as you scramble to make note of all of the windows and doors to try and keep the necromorphs at bay, and with sheer determination and fear, you just make it. A rather large and peculiar hole in the wall of a corridor strikes your vision as you pass, and you're reminded of the previous chapter where there have been others dotted around. These holes constantly keep you guessing on what may lurk within, but nothing has occurred as of yet and you are left to ponder. Within the centrifuge room, you are tasked with completing a puzzle involving stasis to slow down 2 generator modules, and kinesis to slide them both back into the centrifuge module. Many Libras attack you within the zero-G space, but can be easily fought back with the help of several fire canisters floating around. You repair the centrifuge, get it back online to re-establish balance with planetary cargo, along with gravity, but also a vacuum. You must vacate the room whilst the centrifuge is active and spinning, but also all the while watching your airflow. This section makes you think of multiple aspects of gameplay to ensure your survival. Several O2 terminals are dotted throughout the room, along with the odd canister in your possession, which helps immensely. Kendra contacts you as you make your way back out of the centrifuge room and back to the hub to say that she was attacked and barricaded herself within this computer core. Hammond intercepts and joins the rig link when Kendra discovers within the computer's core that upon Aegis 7, even before they cracked the planet, the colonists were experiencing widespread dementia. The dementia all connects to an artifact that they found on the planet known as the Marker. Once the discovery has been made, you are brought to a multi-tiered room where the infection known as the Corruption is spreading itself throughout the ship, where you find several people with no legs dangling from the corruption, still alive but well on their way to full mutation, and you have the option of putting them out of their misery. The end room that you have to reach instantly gives you an incredible challenge from the second you open the doors, with necromorphs all over dragging bodies and taking notice of your arrival. The dispersion of these necromorphs takes some time as many different types of enemies try to attack you, and you undergo your game plan for taking each and every one of them down effectively. But once you reignite the engine, another horde thrusts themselves upon you to try and take you out. You escape with your life hanging on by a thread when Hammond sends word of a possible re-entry into a geostationary orbit, but is cut off by Kendra saying that the debris field is blocking us and must be taken care of. Chapter 4 begins with some slight tension between Kendra and Hammond. Kendra accuses Hammond of knowing about the marker this entire time and does not believe him when he says that he's only seen it in the captain's records. With the debris field growing thicker, there is no time to be accusing people and creating drama. Survival is the #1 priority. You are greeted with a lovely tease of the first proper boss of the game. It's arm smashed through the glass window to your left to deliver a scare eerily similar to the dogs jumping through the window in Resident Evil. You get your first glimpse of the impressive bridge of the USG Ishimura, but this view does not last for long as several amounts of debris strike the bridge but cause no significant damage, but your mission of fixing the ADS cannon becomes much greater. Hammond gives you some advice in repairing the ADS cannon, but before you leave, he warns you of seeing something big. Really big. Once you leave Hammond and walk past the escape pods, a slasher pops up from inside, which Hammond jettisons immediately before any more damage can be done. Another lockdown commences to try to make your way along the repair mission. Smashing through one of the doors is what teased and tried to grab you earlier, the Brute. An extremely large necromorph composed of multiple human corpses. It has heavy organic armor in its front and possesses extreme physical strength, making it a deadly foe in combat. To pierce through the tough exoskeleton, you must use your stasis module to lock the Brute into place. Run behind it, throw a number of rounds into it, or use the flamethrower and repeat until it has been taken down. In some cases, if you only sever one leg, it will no longer charge after you and begin to shoot organic bombs, which can be easily caught with kinesis and propelled back against it. Upon defeat, the Brute drops a gold semiconductor, which helps greatly with purchasing ammo and suit upgrades within the ship's store. After the Brute has been defeated, you may enter the room where they inhabit it and are shown a brief message from Nicole on multiple screens, asking for you to make us whole again. Nicole's well-being presses further upon you with this message, and as you enter the lift, you come across a very important vidlog pertaining to the story. It is a video file that contains footage of Captain Benjamin Mathias' death upon the bridge. He was announced as being unfit for duty, along with Dr. Terence Kine administering a small sedative to calm the captain's erratic behaviour, where Mathias is swinging his head wildly, where, in a brief moment of static, suddenly Kine inadvertently shoves the needle deep into the captain's eye, puncturing his brain and thus killing him in the process, from the guards who are holding him back, announcing the rest of Dr. Kine, and this is where the vidlog ends, leaving you to wonder about the Doctor's fate. Instead of the developers giving you only one Brute to tackle with some recovery time, they decide to amp up the fear and tension by adding a second Brute within the next area shortly after some gravity distorted plates in a previous room. With the previous knowledge on how to take down a Brute, this one could be easily taken care of, but with the enclosed space it hinders your vision and mobility, which heightens your stress and anxiety to defeat it. Once you transfer power to the ADS and make your way towards the next box to transfer the power, Kendra informs you on what is in fact attacking you to give you a further idea of what is happening, which brings you upon entry into a room that was ultimately designed for murder. Bodies are hanging from the ceiling, gravity panels have been torn up and sent crew members to their demise, along with several enhanced slashers in the way of you completing your task. You wade your way through each and every enhanced slasher to activate the power to only have an infector crawl its way from the depths of the ventilation system to roam and infect each and every dead body that you may have missed. But if you, like myself, have been stomping each body you've seen along the way, you should be fine for now. Another hallway that has become recently exposed to the fabric of space lies before you, so like before, your time with this interconnection is short, with only the slight sounds of Isaac's stomps along with his breathing to aid you in when your air is low. Necromorphs use this hearing disability to their advantage and creep their way upon Isaac to silently take him out. Level 3 is your next destination, and with it, it brings one of my favourite parts of the game and any horror game in general. Once the lift doors open, a crew member or perhaps even an apparition, it manifests itself ahead of you within the darkness and whispers to you, "Make us whole again," reiterating what Nicole has been corresponding to throughout the game so far. Is this the pressure of saving Nicole pushing further down upon Isaac? Or maybe it's just a regular crew member? As these thoughts fly through your head, the being swiftly walks away along the corridor, and just as you make your way to see where he is gone, he's already vanished, and thus creates a moment that stays with you and makes you think about what is perhaps truly going on board the USG Ishimura. You activate the ADS cannon and must make your way to the cannon pit to aim said cannon manually due to a faulty data cable of the auto targeting system. The ship's exterior is the only way to access the pit, but the falling debris field is continuing its descent upon you, and you must take cover behind parts of the ship's exterior to avoid the asteroids barraging you, whilst also keeping an eye on your oxygen gauge. Hammond sends contact as you sit in the cannon pit to manually enter the oncoming asteroids, and also asks you to keep it up until he has finished repairing the auto-targeting system himself. I, like many others, believe that this is perhaps the most unlikable and frustrating part of Dead Space. You play for several hours with a third-person action horror title, only to be suddenly thrust into a mandatory shooting gallery. During your first playthrough, it can be very annoying and frustrating, but with a tip that I've learned from someone to use both back triggers to shoot at the same time, and the focus is to be placed upon the bottom kind of center area of the debris field, it has worked for me each and every time and every playthrough since. As soon as you have essentially cleared the debris from hitting the ship, you have opened the door for necromorphs to attack you in the hull of the ship's exterior, and it's honestly best to book it across the hull back to the door whilst only taking out what is extremely necessary. Kendra immediately contacts you once you return from the cannon pit, warning you of something poisoning the air within hydroponics and causing oxygen levels to fall and produce the three of you without any oxygen. It is filling the deck up with organic matter, but Kendra believes that she can make a poison to destroy it and task you with heading to return to the medical deck to get everything you need. Hammond says that he is also travelling to hydroponics to try and slow down whatever is poisoning the air so Isaac has enough time to create the poison. This concludes the first part of my Let's Talk series in the Dead Space game. Please return for part 2 where we tackle chapters 5 to 8 along with whatever is plaguing hydroponics. Thank you so much for watching, and please comment below on what you think so far and what is your favourite moment of Dead Space. And as always, subscribe, curb stomp that like button, and Altman be praised.